My name is Elizabeth Poles. I was a printmaker at Smith College and then got my MFA in printmaking at UMass. Italy is a big part of my work because I, as a child, lived there for a year. I went to 5th grade in Italy in an Italian school and sort of got into my blood in a pretty serious way. I went back as a 19-year-old and spent a year studying art, doing studio work there. Then I embarked on a long career as a graphic designer, doing magazine work, illustration work, a little away from the fine arts. About 20 years ago, something clicked. I don't know if it was the fact that computers meant that I was doing my day job without engaging the part of your brain that has the hands-on aspect of painting, but I went back to fine art and discovered color and oil paint and studied informally with some wonderful local painters and began to feel like an artist again in a very different way from how I had when I was a young person. Colors become more and more important, and I've become less graphic in my work, although my background as a designer and a printmaker have informed the way I paint. 40 years have gone by. I've had a different kind of life, a different kind of narrative to want to tell in my work, which is unabashedly narrative, unabashedly realism without being photorealism, which at various points along the way has been a hard sell. It seems to be a pretty good sell right now in terms of what people are interested in seeing in my work. For the first time in my life, there's a kind of opaque political content in that as I was dealing with this slide collection and scanning images that this woman unknown to me had taken in the 30s and the 50s in places that were actually foreign in all ways to me, that I had never heard the word Palmyra when I encountered it first in 2012, I think, when I was scanning these images that looked awfully cool when I held them up to the light, but I had no idea what they were, whether they were in Greece, they were vague temples. So I began to scan them, and you know the way an image being scanned sort of scrolls onto your monitor, this place was appearing before my eyes. It was just stupendous. And because the woman who took these slides documented on each slide mount the day, the actual date, sometimes the time of day, the initials of the people who might be in the slides, the place name. So I could, you know, with the benefit of Google, which didn't exist in 1980 when I first saw the slides, I could say, okay, where's Palmyra? And get up all this information. And so I began to think of ways to incorporate the images and the places in these boxes without simply copying her images, which were wonderful in and of themselves. And I had actually started my first Palmyra piece without the context of what's been going on there in the last couple of years, when suddenly on NPR there was, you know, Palmyra, and oh, you know, the first temple has been destroyed, and it was actually a temple that I was working on. So suddenly, you know, something that seemed personal and quiet and sort of an homage to this 90-year-old woman who had saved her slides and treasured them her whole life, had kind of a mission that I hadn't anticipated. My husband was given the slides in the early 80s when he worked at an institution which had been given the slides by the estate of this woman who had died without heirs, and they saw them as an old woman's personal travel slides and weren't really interested in them, but his friend said, hey, we just put this collection of slides in the dumpster. We can't use them, but they're in really nice cases. You might want the cases. So he went and fished them out of the dumpster and brought them home. And indeed, they were travel slides, and all carefully labeled. So I kind of looked at the boxes as my interests expanded. Every place these women went when they were traveling, the monuments are documented. But in amongst them, pretty much every place in the Middle East, there were pictures of tent villages. So even in the early 50s, well, maybe time out of mind, there have been refugee camps in all of these places. So it was a way of incorporating the idea of tents and displaced peoples with what's going on, what has gone on. I have something like 15,000 slides on my computer that have numbers. So it felt like a moment in time that needed to be acted on and preserved. And again, it ties into the idea of memory and the huge role it plays in all of our lives. I have long been drawn to gates, doors, openings, walls with an access that you may or may not have to whatever is on the other side. And I think I was working on those ideas visually without truly understanding what it was I was doing, traveling that same route, but just in a different art form and in a different media. Until sometime in the last couple of years, it sort of crystallized, like, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. For me, painting is the idea of having witnessed something, usually in the natural world, like a shooting star, and how much more important it becomes if someone else has, you can both point and say, oh, did you see that? So a lot of what I'm doing is, did you see that?